goes on. Yeah, send lawyers, guns, and money. The shit has hit the fan. Hodge L.A. back after a few-week hiatus. Had to go back to Massachusetts for a wedding and watch my cousin drop about 20 G's on a dance party that's just nothing but awkward and fucking $8 cupcakes and shit like that. Brutal. I don't know why people go through stuff like that. NFL offseason. Speaking of lawyers, drugs, and money. Drugs, guns, and fights littering the season. Too many to offseason, rather. Too much to talk about. Let's start right away. Greg Hardy, defensive end for Carolina. Great player, Pro Bowler, arrested for domestic abuse. Beat up his girlfriend and threw her on a bed full of guns. They said it was over $100,000 worth of guns on a bed that he threw her on. As part of his arrest, he has to do 3 times a week. He has to go to AA, which is a fucking complete waste. I don't know why anybody has to be sent to AA and their objective. Look, alcohol is one of those things. It's everybody process it differently. And you can't just have this one-size-fit-all program where these people have to bow down to a higher power and give themselves up. You can't force feed that shit on people. If somebody doesn't want to drink anymore, they just stop. And if it is, in fact, a disease like a lot of people claim it is, they should be able to come up with a drug for that, which they have. You can't just pump money in AA and think that's going to cure Craig Hardy, making him go 3 times a week and fine him $17,000. He was pissed, evidently, because his girlfriend was having an off relationship with, was it Drake? Was it? No, it was, T.I. So she was talking to T.I., so that threw him off. So he ended up throwing on a bed full of gats. Outstanding citizen. Rashae Caldwell, former Patriot receiver. One of the many gifts that Bill Belichick has given Tom Brady over the years as receivers. Arrested in Tampa for selling ecstasy. And he was also arrested in January. This is coming off 6 months ago. Can you believe January 6 months ago already? 6 months ago, he got arrested for illegal gambling operation. He was a bookie. 5.5 months later, he's arrested for selling ecstasy. These are the types of, this Patriot way, once again, these are the types of guys they've surrounded Tom Brady with. Josh Gordon, who had one of the all-time great seasons in NFL last year for the Cleveland Browns. Supposedly, they're going to suspend him for a year for smoking weed, which is ridiculous to me. Why can't the NFL come up with a policy? Very simple thing. Where they just go out and fine the hell out of these guys that want to smoke weed. If these guys want to smoke weed, find them some serious money and see what happens. Forget this suspending them. They don't care. Then they'll just go sit for a year and go smoke more weed. Hit them where it hurts. Hit the owners where it hurts. Find them $500,000, $1 million. Hit them up on that. Hit them where it hurts and see how much it's worth it to smoke weed to them, especially in this country where the debate's ongoing and the debate has already been over in a few states where it's practically legal in some states. Why can't a guy like Josh Gordon, why doesn't he, if someone like him who really needs to smoke weed that bad, why doesn't he go out, get a residency here in California or one of the other states where marijuana is legal, go out and get himself one of those cards so he says he can smoke weed, and now he comes back and says, look, I've been diagnosed by a doctor, I have to smoke this. You can't suspend me for a year. That's detrimental to everybody. It's detrimental to the league, detrimental to the fans, especially now that Goodell is holding this whole HGH testing thing over their heads. In case you haven't been following, the Players Association is saying they want a third-party mediator to be able to look at all these HGH cases and HGH testing, which I'm for, by the way. These guys are putting their lives and limbs on the line. You know, give them some kind of medicine because HGH is medicine. It's been proven in a lot of different areas. But Goodell's saying, no, I want the final say on it. It's amazing how this isn't being blown up more. Goodell's saying, if you guys give me this, you guys let me have the final word on HGH testing, I'll look away. I'll reduce the suspensions for quote unquote recreational drugs. What the fuck? What are they trying to prove? What are they trying to do? Goodell, is he really going to be able to curb This is something, it's never been proven to really do any detrimental effects. Over long term, look, we all know people who smoke a lot of weed. It does make you dumb over time, all right? Everybody knows that. But that's fine. At least it gives the guy some comfort. All these drugs have side effects. And, of course, the popular argument is the children. Oh, please, that ship has already sailed. Find these guys. Hit them up with and then give them money to charity. Josh Gordon wants to go out and smoke weed. Hit him with $1 million fine and give the $1 million fine to NFL Play 60 and make a production out of it. Shame them. Shame them like guys that go out and get whores, guys that go out and get prostitutes. They print their names in the papers. Fine, but you don't have to sit them for a year. That ruins it for everybody. It ruins it for the team. Ruins it for the player, especially when you only have a small window of opportunity to actually make your money in this sport, and they all end up broke anyway. Not all of them, but a lot of them end up broke anyway. Just put their names out there and make them pay the money. I don't know. Is it really that difficult of a thing? I was thinking the same thing when I was watching the NBA. I know this is an NFL show or a football show. Watching the NBA, you got LeBron James almost fouled out the other night versus Indiana. It's so subjective. Fine. You foul out, the owner, the player, anybody from that team should be able to buy back in. $3 million bucks. Donate the shit to charity. Buys LeBron back in for one more foul. Or you could, there's all types of things too. $1 million and he gets one more foul, goes back up to $3 million. It's amazing in a world where we've figured out that incentives are everything to drive people to do certain things. We still can't figure out things like this. Hey, you're going to cripple a franchise? Cripple's a strong word, but all these guys are smoking weed. Not all of them, but most of them anyway. Or scissor. They said Josh Gordon was hitting up the scissor. If any of my 15 listeners are listening right now, if you can get me some promethazine, in the name of science, I just want to try scissor. I've seen too much of it. I want to know what it's all about. Is it that good to get you addicted one time and make you piss away your multi-million-dollar contracts? Jamarcus Russell, Josh Gordon, I'm talking to you. Because I know for a fact Jamarcus Russell is a listener of the program. Darren Sharper and his ongoing sexual assaults. One of them's been dropped. Charges dropped in Miami. I was reading the other day that almost 80% of all sexual assault cases end up getting dropped for one reason or another. That's some creepy shit. It's an amazing statistic. 80% of them, either women are lying or the cops and the prosecutors aren't prosecuting. Either way, it's bad news because you don't want a bunch of lying women, although we all know better than that. Oh, I'm just kidding. And you don't want a bunch of cops that are just dropping the ball on things. That's 80% just seems high. You would think that, I would deal with 50%. See what ends up happening with the Darren Sharper case. Going a few weeks back, Wes Welker, him and Tom Brady going up and just doing up right, I guess, at Kentucky Derby. I don't know. I guess if I was a multimillionaire with a hair transplant and nothing else going on for this, I was out of work. Well, not out of work, but in my off season, time off, they paid Wes Welker. They overpaid him $14,000. One of his posse members at the Kentucky Derby. He's refusing to give it back, and he shouldn't have to give it back. But Wes was out there throwing $100 bills, just peeling off hundreds, which he should. If you win $14,000, a guy like that, Wes Welker has more money than knows what to do with. Most of these guys have more money than know what to do with, but they end up losing it anyways. Robert Mathis suspended 4 games for performance enhancement drugs, but he claims they were fertility drugs. Although, this shit's not that hard. They got all types of lawyers. They got all types of agents. Can't they get this pre-approved before he actually ends up taking it and getting suspended for 4 games? It's just not that hard, right? If this guy really got to take these drugs to be able to procreate, then fuck, do you think they would just be upfront about this right away? Min Ramirez tried to pull the same bullshit. Yeah, I'm saying I guess these guys a lack of sperm count. I wouldn't want to say that to Robert Mathis's face, but shit, suspended 4 games and claims, oh, he's just trying to again. It's always about the kids. It's always about the kids, right? NFL's facing a huge lawsuit. To me, this has as much merit, if not more merit, than the concussion case that's been going on. NFL lawsuit by former NFL players said the NFL, teams in the NFL, gave illegal narcotics / painkillers. And like I said before, all these teams, they're just franchises. It's like McDonald's. McDonald's franchises out all these different stores. The NFL, the NBA, they franchise out all these different teams. So instead of suing the individual teams, they end up suing the league. Makes perfect sense. This particular lawsuit, to me, has a lot more merit than the concussion-based lawsuit. The concussion-based lawsuit, the thing with the concussion lawsuit is, I think a lot of this is revisionist history. They look at this concussion-based lawsuit and they say, oh, the doctors knew. I don't think the doctors knew. Although they've said within a few years that towards the end they kind of knew, I don't think they knew as much. I think they just chalk it up to the times. You know, people thought they got their bell rung. However, these doctors knew that were given these potent painkillers to players. Guys in the lawsuit: Richard Dent, Jim McMahon, Keith Van Horn, former Bears, which is ironic because you got a guy like Mike Ditka, who's the over-the-top conservative. I have conservative views myself on some things, but not disillusional conservative, like someone like Mike Ditka, who will come out and say, these guys knew what they were putting in their body. Everybody knows what they're putting in their body. Bullshit. Okay, those guys, especially back in the day, they didn't go home and look at WebMD. They didn't go home and scour through their phone to see what the potential dangers were of these drugs. They just took whatever they get their hands on to get them back on the field because that's what they did. And you hear people say, oh, you can read the back of an Advil bottle and it'll tell you all the different possible, repercussions of taking Advil. Bullshit. These guys didn't know. But the doctors did know that, because the doctors were the ones doing researches on this behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? We're in a day and age now where anybody can look up anything. All the knowledge is sitting in our pockets. You can look up anything in a matter of 15, 20 seconds. But back even, 15, 16, 20 years ago, to be safe, nobody knew. These guys didn't know. They're going to go to the library and look up what the side effect of Dafong is. They have no idea. So they're taking it because they're 22, 23 years old. They're trying to make it in the NFL. The doctors are telling them, yeah, go ahead and take this. And lo and behold, what happens? 10, 15 years later, they become addicted to this shit. To me, that's a much, much, much more, I don't want to say cynical, but a much more culpable, the NFL's guilt, because they knew that the doctors knew that these things were somewhat dangerous, especially when you pump these guys full of them. And it still happens today. How many guys they talk about when you just watch games, we just got a cortisone shot. Cortisone is freaking steroidal. It's any of these anti-inflammatories. What is the definition of a steroid? This drug's okay, but this one's not okay because this one works a little bit better than this one. Any foreign substance you take changes your body, changes the way you're able to do things. But for some reason, a column A is worse than column B. But they give them all these guys, and they expect them to be the ones that be able to be responsible for it. I don't believe that. You could say personal responsibility all you want, but these guys didn't know. But someone who did know about what he was doing was Aaron Hernandez. Coming out this week, and we talked about this ad nauseum on the program, but Aaron Hernandez got charged this week for killing 2 people, which led to the killing of Odin Lloyd, the one that ended up popping him, the one that ended up hitting all the news media. But before this, a year before, when Aaron Hernandez actually ended up playing a whole NFL season, he killed 2 guys over spilled drinks. evidently he got bumped into at a nightclub and he spilled his drinks. The guys didn't apologize. He waited outside for him, drove around, and ended up killing these guys. Fast forward, played the whole season, Patriot way, played the whole season. Ends up, Odin Lloyd knew something about it, the guy who was going to rat him out, and they ended up offering him too. Shit, he got away with it once. He was living in his false narrative Tony Soprano world. Killed 2 guys over a spilled drink. You're a freaking multi-millionaire. You're a multi-millionaire and you're with a newborn at home. Not that that matters because, you know, everybody gets a free pass. Oh, he's got kids now. He's got it all figured out because he has children. He had offspring. He's got it all figured out. So, you know, kind of backtrack there. But Aaron Hernandez made $18 million in 3 years. Now he's saying to his lawyers he doesn't have money. Well, he's talking about really lawyers ruin everything. Not that they're going to ruin this particular case, but they take him. The whole system's screwed because they take Aaron Hernandez this far. He's paying them all this money. They milk him for all this money, and now they're saying, oh, no, you don't have enough money, Aaron. Sorry, we're out. After he spends like $10 million or whatever it may be on his lawyers. I don't think it was that much, but several million nonetheless. And now lawyers get to game day and they're like, oh, nope, sorry, can't help you, Aaron. He's screwed either way, which he should be. What an amazing story. It's one of the most unique stories, probably the most unique story in professional sports history. Someone would come on. The guy's basically, you wouldn't want to say you can sort of say he's a serial killer, but he's a mass killer. He's killed multiple people, multiple different incidences. Oh, it's the boys in the hood effect. Too much watching TV. Too much smoking blunts and doing God knows what and chewing, what was it, cotton candy, bubble gum, bubble yum. Got people thinking that it is infallible, young man. You're infallible. Speaking of infallible, is one that came down the pipe today. Johnny Elway. John Elway's son. Jack Elway III. John Elway III, 24 years old. Pushed his 23-year-old girlfriend out of a moving vehicle. What the fuck? Pushed her out of a moving vehicle. Man, look, there's been times I've been in arguments with some of my lady friends. And, you know, it's one thing to say, hey, get out, you know, pull over and have that whole, we've all been in those situations. I don't know about all of us, but a lot of us have been in those situations where it's like, all right, just get out. But he pushed this girl out of the fucking car. And he's out on $550 bail. Shit. This isn't an episode of The Fall Guy or MacGyver. You can't just throw people out of moving vehicles. But Jack Elway III threw his 23-year-old girlfriend, who I'm sure is smoking hot, by the way. I'm sure John Elway III is not rolling with, you know, BC listers. You know, as a kid who's probably been told his whole life, probably just has no perception of reality. He's probably been told his whole life how great he is. Imagine he's 10 years old and his old man is winning the Super Bowl. His old man is never home. Similar to the Jerry Remy case with the Red Sox. None of these guys are ever home. These big-time athletes are always on the road. Just throwing money home. Who knows what the mother's like. Probably addicted to Vicodin and red wine. You know, they got all the money in the world. Kid probably just takes advantage of anything that they give him. Just his whole perception of reality has to be warped. It's going to be difficult. You got to give a little bit of benefit of a doubt, a little devil's advocate. That the kid, you know, there's going to be a lot of pressure there. Being John Elway's son, he was a quarterback as well. Went to Arizona State, quit the team. You know, I have no patience for quitters. Just finish out the year. He quit a team in the middle of the year, I guess. Quit and graduated from Arizona State. I'm sure poor John Elway Jr., the third, rolling around in Chandler, Arizona, or Tempe, Arizona, and fucking that wasteland, rolling around probably some kind of Cadillac Escalade. I'm sure John the third had very little trouble with the ladies. So I'm sure he, his value system, let's just say, is a little bit warped. But I digress. $550 for throwing a girl out of the freaking car? I would think that'd be worth a little bit more. You can't do stuff like that. Not in a civilized society. Jaru Campbell, Michigan State, 4-star quarterback commit. 17 years old, got to spend 60 days in jail because he body slammed. You can check this shit out on YouTube. Jaru Campbell, Jayru Campbell, Michigan. You can see this on YouTube. He body slams a security guard at school. We call him proctors out here. Ended up freaking like full-on WWE style suplexes the guy. Junior in high school. Evidently, all the guy asked him was to take off his hood. Put him in jail for 60 days. I don't see why a school like Michigan State would even want to recruit. Why would you want to take on that type of baggage? It's like Jameis Winston and his baggage. More and more comes out every day. Now they're saying Jameis Winston stole a soda, and they got out on video he stole a soda from Burger King. Fuck that. I would never. You wouldn't pay me to take Jameis Winston in the draft next year. And that's when we'll see what happens. A long way to go between now and then. Shit, last year at this time, we had no idea who Jameis Winston even was. Now we're talking about this guy, all the time. Well, at least I do. I spend all types of hours talking about Jameis Winston. He's stealing freaking crab legs. He's stealing sodas from Burger King. Getting accused of rape, which is or is not his fault. But with the smoke, there's fire. Obviously, the guy is a little bit freaking disturbed. If you had that type of money lined up on the table, you had that type of talent, don't you think you could be a little bit more reserved? I'd just go live out in the woods somewhere and try to stay away from people. I wouldn't even deal with the real world. He could have people go and bring him all types of shit if he wanted it. Live like Colonel Kurtz in Apocalypse Now. Just have people bring you food and shit from the dining hall. You sit in your dorm room, play video games, and play people for weed. There'd be people dying at Florida State. Be like, yo, I took go to Jameis Winston's room, and I'd play him in Madden and shit. And we'd smoke blunts, and I'd bring him food. It'd be worth it. Just hunker down in a dorm somewhere. Never go out. Have him bring over ladies in a brothel and stuff like that. In the fantasy world. Hey, there was college football played this week. Claremont McKenna Scripps. Claremont McKenna College, where I live, Claremont, California. They ended up playing the Austrian national team yesterday. Grown men. CMC lost 21-14. Southwestern U, Division III school in Texas, 0-10. Ended up playing the Stuttgart Scorpions in Germany. The Scorpions in Germany. Brings you back to the episode when I had CJ Robinson on, which will be back because his Triangle Razorbacks, for those faithful listeners, his Triangle Razorbacks in Denmark are undefeated right now and playing great defense. He will be on the show in the next few weeks again. That reminds me, I was on a high school team, a high school all-star team, if you will. We ended up going to Ireland my senior year in high school. I was 17 years old. I don't think that type of stuff happens now. I think they do it with colleges, which is a brilliant business, by the way. Great business model. Go out and get these small-time colleges and have them all. It's these small-time colleges that pay a lot of money to go there and have each kid pay like $1,000. 50 fucking kids in the team and bring them over to Ireland or Germany or whatnot and put on a little, dog and pony dance for them and have them go on all types of tours and play a game. You can make big time money doing that. Something like that happened my senior year in high school. We ended up playing in a team in Ireland. We ended up playing a men's team, which I don't think you could do anymore because I can't recall I must have signed all type of paperwork to go there. But we had 17-year-old kids playing against these middle-aged guys in their late 20s and 30s who were drinking beer on the sidelines, smoking cigarettes in the huddle. We ended up playing them, and we were kids. And people always say, oh, I think I could pound on high school kids. If you get a group of high school kids, or in this case, we're talking Division III college kids, they would beat the hell out of if they were good players, as we were. relatively. You can beat the hell out of a bunch of grown men who have no idea what they're doing in a sport like football. It's not like wrestling, where we just get your hands on them. It's just so much to it. But I think it's a great business. It's something I should go into now that I'm even thinking about this out loud. Just go out and get these teams and book tours in all these different countries and play these exhibition games. You can end up, it's good memories. It's good stories, too. Shit, we went out. We snuck out of our dorms the second to last night there. When we all took cabs into downtown Dublin and ended up getting loaded. And the tour guide, the Irish guy who was a tour guide, ended up finding us somehow, some way, and grabbed us and threw us all in the bus and threw us back into bed. And we ended up, one of the kids ended up smashing open the fire extinguisher, ended up spraying it all over the place. And they threatened all types of shit, but nothing ever happened from it because I think they made their money off of us. But, yeah, that's good business. Plenty of money to be made in that stuff. Speaking of plenty of money, Calvin Johnson, Megatron, if you will, his girlfriend, they went over to his baby mama's place. He's got a 6-month-old daughter with the baby mama. I don't know why there's not more outrage with these guys. I mean, shit, you're going to impregnate a woman. Can't you at least stay with her for 6 months? You can't stand her that much that you can't at least be with her for a few months. If you're going to impregnate this woman, if you're going to go all the way with that, as far, this isn't the 1950s, and I'm pretty damn sure Calvin Johnson's not a Catholic, so he does know what birth control is, and, he's probably had 7th grade, 8th grade health class. There's a few ways you can go about not impregnating a woman, but he did. His baby mama got a 6-month-old. Calvin Johnson brings his girlfriend over, who's an employee of the Detroit Lions. I don't see how that could really fly. Of course, they're kind of in flux. I don't even know, the Ford family still owns them, but old man Ford's still not there. He wouldn't stand for that. But his girlfriend is a manager of partner activation. I don't even know what the fuck that is. I don't know how people get jobs like that. Let me digress for a quick moment. Good friend of mine is an assistant coach with the Giants. In the last few months, I've been contemplating getting out of teaching PE in high school football. It drains on you, especially dealing with, a little bit of skin cancer, if you will, and all that. So anyway, long story short, I hit this guy up. I said, look, what do I need to do to be able to get into something like a college scouting? Be a personnel, one of those guys that's in the war room, if you will, making draft decisions. It's like, well, the only way I know about it is we would have to take an unpaid internship for about a year. What the fuck? You take an unpaid internship, you get a guy like myself or anybody who's accumulated knowledge in this sport for years. And look, granted, this might sound like sour grapes. This might sound bitter. Whatever. But they take guys like this and they say, you're going to come back and work for free in an internship to be able to work for an NFL franchise. So in turn, what ends up happening is they just get these college drones, these kids out of college, these yes men that could probably, pipe into a computer a little bit better than myself. And they take these guys and they just promote them through their system so you get a level of incompetence. You don't get people who actually know what the hell's going on with football. I'm not saying I'm the guy that knows what the hell's going on with football, but my experience level, I would guarantee, is 10 times more than some of these guys just coming out of college. Even if they played at the Division I level. I worked at the Division I level. Big deal. It means he's a little bit taller, faster, and stronger. Anywho, that was a little bit of a side tangent. Calvin Johnson's girlfriend, who works for the team, got out of a car and evidently he threatened to mollywop Calvin Johnson's baby mama. I didn't even know what mollywop was. I guess it's a hip-hop term. I always thought I was hip-hop savvy. Evidently not. Mollywopping is reaching way back with your pimp hand and damn near knocking yourself over before you deliver a massive blow with an inside closed fist to the temple of your hoe or foe. So it's good to see Calvin Johnson's rolling women that's going to mollywop his baby mama, 6-month-old. And nothing's going to be, I don't think Joe Buck is going to talk about mollywhopping, although Joe Buck gets so overly the top offended by Randy Moss fake mooning somebody. A guy like Calvin Johnson, they'll talk about next year and how he's such an upstanding citizen. While his girl's going to mollywop his hoe. I felt a little racist, but I don't think it didn't come from a place of racism. It just place of fact. I don't know how these guys get away with it, but they consistently do. I had friends say, "How you gonna do the show, the NFL show, in the off season?" Oh, please, these guys write this stuff themselves. You just got to pay a little bit of attention. No discipline has come through the pipe for Jimmy Irsay or Ray Rice. Ray Rice, a couple weeks ago, had his press conference with his sacred wife, after he beat the hell out of her and dragged her out of an elevator. Wouldn't take any questions. Still hasn't been suspended. That's an interesting case. In the Jim Irsay case, what is Roger Goodell going to do with Jim Irsay? Irsay was found with OxyContin, too. You don't come back from OxyContin. Fuck that. That shit is freaking prescription heroin. If he's rolling around with bagfuls of OxyContin and tons of cash, Jim Irsay is too far gone. They can put him back in the AA program with Greg Hardy all they want, and they can bow down to a higher power. But once you get on that shit, it is hard to get off. And I'm sure Jimmy Irsay has been dabbling for more than a few months. Of course, I read that Irsay fought back and said, "Oh, this is a former football injury. That's why I'm taking it." We'll see what Goodell ends up. Fine the hell out of him. The fuck? You got a billionaire. Make him pay $1 million or something. Even though they pay $1 million to these charities that nobody even hears of. I don't know why they just don't make them infuse it back into schools. Fuck. Give Indianapolis City Schools build them a friggin' pavilion. Make them do something, but they won't. And make them do some kind of rehab. Jimmy Irsay will be fine, and they'll all be fine. More crime. Devin Thomas, Oklahoma State, freshman running back and a 4-star recruit, according to Rivals.com. That's the business I should get into. I should just be an internet high school, rate high school kids. Doesn't that feel? Wouldn't that feel dirty? That'd feel dirty to me. Going around rating high school kids on a 5-star scale and how good they're gonna be. People make a living doing that. Multiple people make a living. That's big business nowadays. I guess the only way they really make money is advertising. Doesn't advertising drive everything? You got a team like the LA Clippers spend $2 billion on the LA Clippers. Billion fucking dollars on the LA Clippers. When they're thinking the Buffalo Bills are only going to get it, $500 million only. How do you even make money off something like that? You spend $2 billion on it and all the salaries you have to pay. I know how they make money. Advertising and selling 25-ounce beers for $14 a piece. Yeah, idiots like me go to these fucking games and pay these money to these freaking games. They're like, oh, yeah, give me a $14 beer. $2 billion for fucking the worst franchise in the history of pro sports. No more basketball. Where'd I go? Devin Thomas, Oklahoma State, freshman running back. Just got arrested. Robbing a classmate, robbing him at gunpoint, stole their weed, stole their shoes. They got to get around. And their clothes. Fired shots as they went away in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. There's a scholar for you. They're going to waste scholarships. That's why the same conservative people that think that players are at fault for taking these drugs, the same ones say, well, they get scholarships. Yeah, this Devin Thomas fellow is he's a scholar, gentleman and a scholar. Not saying that it wouldn't happen anyways, but shit. At least let this guy go play, at least don't bring him into college campuses. How about that? More crime. Darrell Washington. Great linebacker, by the way. I don't know if you've seen that guy play for Arizona. It's a huge, huge loss. Suspended for the whole year. Missed the first 4 games of last year. Still ended up with like 85-something tackles and multiple interceptions. I think he had some touchdowns too. Great athlete. Suspended for the whole year. But I already said my piece on those guys. Just fine them the hell. Yeah, I've already said it dozens of times. Let's move on to the lawsuit portion of it. Let's get out of the crime and let's go to the lawsuits. $40 million charged to EA Sports. It's in the game. For football players and basketball players. For any NCAA football player or basketball player who appeared in an EA Sports game starting in 2003 is entitled to this class action lawsuit. $40 million from EA Sports. Which, of course, you get those things in the mail. Once everybody gets these things in the mail, whether they're a member of 24-Hour Fitness or they got the oil change at freaking Quickie Lube or whatever. You get these postcards in the mail. It says you're a part of a class action lawsuit. What's going to end up happening, they're saying, for each year, estimates are for each year you're in one of these games, you're going to make about $50 for each year that you're in one of these games. Fucking lawyers ruin everything. What they do, EA Sports didn't put out college football this year. Come on. These guys who played college sports that are in this game, they should be just thrilled for being in the fucking game. I guess my politics get conservative here now. I've done a 180 on you. I guess, just be happy you're in the game. You got a little bit of posterity. Hey, look at this. I was in this game in 2005. You really need the extra $50 for the 3 years you were in. $150. Screw everything up. Send lawyers guns and money. The shit has hit the fan. Des Bryant, big story today. I don't even know why it's that big of a story. But it just goes to show that this shit happens all the time. The NFL does nothing. He went to a dinner his rookie year a few years back and spent 55 G's. That's more money I make in a year. That's more money than most people in this country make in a year. Spend 55 G's on a dinner bill his rookie year. I don't know why it came out as being a story. I think this stuff is commonplace. How gross that fucking is. $55,000 on one night is some bullshit freaking dong payong, some kind of fucking rock lobster. That's the type of stuff we should come down on. When are we going to wake up, fans? Realize these people are overpaid. Although football is probably the least paid of all of them. They can always point back to less games, but you look at the Dodgers, the most expensive franchise. The Dodgers and the Clippers. Imagine what the Lakers would get. Shit, imagine when the LA franchise football team would end up getting in LA. Stephen Ross, owner of the Miami Dolphins, just came out and said, within 5 years, there will be a team in LA. Fucking I believe it when I see it. Because then there's other people saying LA it's become disenfranchised. They don't even want to pursue a team anymore. Saying within 5 years, possible candidates, we've talked about them before. Buffalo, I wouldn't like to see that. Buffalo's got that AFL roots, but there are teams that could easily go. I'm not going to go down that path again. Why should I? But it's amazing sometimes you look at fines like getting back to the John Elway's kid, $550 for throwing a woman out of a fucking car. And it's a side note. What the hell? Southwest Airlines fined $200,000, which is nothing to the Southwest Airlines people, fined $200,000 because they were advertising flights from Atlanta to Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles for $59 a piece. But here's the kicker. These flights didn't exist. They were straight up fucking lying about these flights, and they're paying $200,000 for it. $200,000 to them is like, I don't know, 45 cents for me and the average Joe. It means nothing. You drive yourself crazy thinking about this shit, people. I don't even know why I do. I guess it's a healthy outlet more than anything. Bill Barnwell, we've spoken to him about him at length. Does some good work. Interesting article because as a football guy, obviously, someone who knows a little bit about the sport, we always point to turnovers being the difference. And they are. Turnovers are the difference in individual games. However, he had an article this week, which I really appreciated, I guess, which kind of opened my eyes a little bit, talking about how turnover margin from one year to the next in the NFL is pretty random. Meaning you have teams like Kansas City and Philadelphia 2 years ago that were like minus 18 in turnovers. And then the next year, they're plus 20. But what he contends, and I don't have all the numbers crunching here to be able to spit them back out at you, but what he contends is those numbers swing randomly every year. So the point being, if those numbers swing randomly every year, really a lot of what goes on in these NFL games is a fucking crapshoot. It's just shit luck. And I've thought about that, and I've discussed that on the show about why luck plays so much of a role in all these sports. But you look at these guys and you look at these teams and they're saying, you just don't know. It's just shit luck. You turn the ball over. People drop the ball. It's one of my arguments and one of my discussion points about a guy like Stephen Ridley with the Patriots. He drops the ball, but it's either, hey, you're coaching him to drop the ball, or B, he can't hold on to the ball. Either way, then he can't play. But what the numbers say is just shit luck over sample size in these, pseudo-intelligentsia, if you will, the Bill Simmonses of the world. We'll talk about, sample size over time when these guys have fumbles. But in each individual game, when that fumble happens, it's huge. It turns the game. I don't know where the hell I'm going with all this. Well, all I'm saying is it's a lot more luck involved in everything than we like to give credit for. We like to say it's a plan. We like to say it's, written in stone somewhere. Somebody give praise to Allah after every game because Allah was looking out for my team and he was saying, fuck you to the other team. That's what I always love about these guys like Stevie Johnson a few years back with the Buffalo Bills. I was talking, how could you do this to me, Jesus? I praise you every day, but you made me drop those balls. I love it. But one time some guy says something like that, as opposed to the hundreds and hundreds of times of guys giving praise to Jesus for Jesus putting the ball in their hands. At least Stevie was keeping it real. Rocking my Penn State shirt today for my 3 fans who are watching the podcast. James Franklin, got to give it to the guy. I think he's a snake oil salesman, but that's what wins in NCAA football. Big Ten doesn't have a rule. If you want to go and guest coach at a school in the South for a camp, you go ahead and do that. I actually worked that circuit one year when I was at Holy Cross. That was the one time I almost got in a fist fight with Chip Kelly, which is really a non-story, but it's, I've said it before, so if you're listening, you've heard it. But James Franklin, they're going out and having all these guest coaches, including Ricky Ronnie, who stood me up on this very program. And my main man, Sean Spencer. They go out and they coach at Georgia State. Georgia State loves it. They bring in these guys from these Big Ten schools. They bring more kids in. And then Penn State loves it because they're getting this access to SEC talent, which they didn't have. And the SEC has this freaking dumb rule. It says they can't go be a guest coach at any other's camp if it's outside of 50 miles from their campus. So SEC guys are whining. Oh, how can they do this to us? We need a fair play. It's unfair. Everything's unfair. But you got to give it to Franklin, the sleeping giant. Penn State, you know what? What Franklin's doing and knowing the guys I know and being around that school and seeing that passion for football is a sleeping giant. As much as I have respect for Joe Pa, he was living in an archaic time. You know, he's the same type of thing I was talking about earlier with a guy like Donald Sterling. You know, these guys are living in different times. Even though Joe worked his ass off and is a legend, but Penn State is a sleeping giant. They're dying for someone to come in there and do with things that James Franklin's doing and it's going to do. I would not be surprised if Penn State in the next 3-4 years, it just becomes a juggernaut, a top 5, perennial top 5, top 10 BCS bowl school. There's too much talent in that area. And if they go in and start really hitting the South, infiltrating the South, they bring them up. There are a handful of campuses, I guarantee you, in the country like Penn State. Just rabid. They got the right guy. He's going to end up turning around, and all those sanctions that are, a world of good, tearing down the statue of Joe, saying we had to change the culture. Yeah, you've changed the culture, all right. You've changed the culture. Now you got a guy who's coming in and bending rules any which way he can, which is completely legal. Malcolm Glazer, we don't got too much time left. Malcolm Glazer, owner of Tampa Bay Buccaneers, bought him in 1995 for $192 million. Are you telling me that the LA Clippers are 10 times worth 10 times more than the Bucks? Anyway, bought them for $192 million. Also the owner of Manchester United, which evidently is some kind of big fucking soccer team. At least I even know that, even though I do my best not to watch any of this World Cup madness for reasons I've spoken about at length. Passed away, 85 years old. And in 1995, $192 million was a record for NFL franchise. Now they're talking about teams like the Bills. They're going to open up around $550, $600 million for Buffalo Bills. Shit. Not even prime real estate. You can't even compare real estate in Buffalo to Tampa. Although you say that, and you can get houses dirt cheap in Tampa, I suppose. Still a lot cooler to live there than it is Buffalo. Speaking of coolness factor, we got to talk Johnny Manziel before we leave. Just because it's offseason, it's Johnny Manziel partying in Vegas with Gronk. Oh, please, somebody, some way, get some kind of reality show following around Gronk and Manziel. Is there anything Manziel does that isn't over tabloid? And Manziel is a pussycat compared to Gronkowski. Imagine the women those two would pull. I would just think that Gronkowski's scraps would be, filet mignon for your average Joe. And I don't think Johnny Manziel is your average Joe, although he looks like your average Joe. He is not your average Joe. Running with Gronk, going to UFC matches, good for him. Talk about a 21st century Joe Namath. Johnny Manziel looks like, high-end Deliverance. How dare I speak ill will of Johnny Manziel? Jake Glazer was saying that Manziel's text message at the last minute put Cleveland over the top for drafting them. They had Teddy Bridgewater on their card, and Johnny Manziel's text message to the quarterback coach put him over the top last minute. Just get on the field. Enough of this. We need enough of this friggin' off-season Johnny Manziel tabloid shit. As much as I like the guy, not much as, what are you going to do? Just pounding this shit to death. You're going to watch Peyton Manning running around with the green football. It's ball security. It's a Denver thing. We're preaching ball security this year. Like every team doesn't preach ball security. And according to Bill Bonwell, it's random anyways. But I like those slick green balls. We bust those out every once in a while. Makes it a little bit tougher to hold on to as you're running around. I think Peyton Manning really needs, at this point in his life, he needs to really learn how to hold on to a football. I guess it was obviously from the Super Bowl last year when the first snap of the game went over his head. If it was a green, slick football, though, he would have been able to grab it. Let's end on a little bit of positivity. Bud Grant, longtime NFL coach for the Minnesota Vikings, and the only man, something should be celebrated a little bit more. the only guy in the history of American pro sports to play in the NBA and the NFL. Played on the World Championship Minneapolis Lakers in the early 50s, and he also played in the Eagles as a receiver and won 4 Grey Cups as a coach, as a head coach in Canada. NFL Hall of Famer in 1994. Had a yard sale this past weekend, and anybody who spent $25 or more would get a free picture. Well, not free, it's been $25, but get a picture and an autograph of Bud Grant. I think that could only happen in communities, states like Minnesota. Something like that happened in New England would be a fucking shit show. I remember 1986 when the Red Sox went to the World Series and lost. They had a ball signing thing at the local Ford dealership at Ristusha Ford, which if anybody cares, listen, Ristusha bought the rink where the Bruins practice now right across the street. Anyhow, it was a fucking horror show. It was raking smash and grab. It was 86. You know, Boston fans are a little bit different. But in Minnesota, you got a legend like Bud Grant sitting out in his lawn chair signing autographs and people spend $25 at his yard sale. Oh, I think I want to move. Nah, fuck that. I wouldn't move anywhere near Minnesota. Too flat, too cold. If I'm going to move someplace cold, I'll go back to Massachusetts. I need to go to Minnesota. All right, that's it. Not too cold in here because I'm sweating my balls off. I think come in here just I think more of a sauna type effect than anything else. That's all we got. I'll see you next week. I'll be back here with bells on. Follow us on Twitter at HadjazLA. Follow us. Nah, I took that Facebook down. What am I saying? That's it. I'm out. Later.